Most people don't need more time. They need a reset. Because if your life stays the same for the next 6 months, your future won't change. It will repeat. Let me ask you a question. If your life stayed exactly the same for the next 5 years, would you be proud of where you end up? Because here's the truth most people avoid. Your life is not stuck. It is perfectly designed to give you the results you're currently getting. And if you want different results, you don't need a new year, a new city, or a miracle. You need a reset. Not emotionally, not temporarily, but strategically. 6 months, that's it. 6 months can change everything if you stop doing what feels good and start doing what works. Most people don't fail because they lack information. They fail because they tolerate too much. They tolerate mediocre habits, draining relationships, scattered focus, small thinking. And whatever you tolerate, you teach your life to accept. A reset begins when you raise your standards and say, this version of me is expired, not tomorrow, not next month, now. Motivation fades, clarity commands if I ask. You exactly who you're becoming in 6 months. Most people can't answer that, and confusion always produces weak action. You don't reset your life by chasing goals. You reset your life by deciding an identity. Ask yourself, how does this future version think? What does this version no longer do? What does this version protect at all costs? When clarity shows up, discipline follows. Most people try to change habits while staying the same person. That never works. You don't wake up early because you want to. You wake up early because that's who you are now. You don't say no to distractions because you're strong. You say no because your future matters more than your comfort. 6 months from now, you shouldn't be trying to be disciplined. You should be someone who doesn't negotiate with weakness. Motivation is emotional. Leverage is structural. Change your environment. Inputs, associations. If your phone controls you, it's not a willpower problem. It's a system problem. If your circle pulls you backward, it's not loyalty. It's sabotage. A reset means designing your life so success becomes the default. And failure becomes inconvenient. People overestimate what they can do in a day and underestimate what they can do in 6 months. Consistency beats intensity. Every time, one focused hour a day for 6 months beats random bursts of effort spread across years. Your reset won't look dramatic at first, but compound. Growth is invisible before it's undeniable. 6 months from now, you'll be somewhere. The question is, did you drift there or did you design it? The same calendar, the same 24 hours, but a completely different life. A reset doesn't require permission. It requires a decision. And once that decision is made, the plan isn't complicated. Raise your standards. Define your identity. Eliminate distractions. Execute daily. Do that for 6 months, and you won't recognize the person you used to be, not because of luck, not because of talent, but because you finally chose intentional transformation over comfortable survival. 6 months, start now. Your current results are not an accident, and they are not a mystery. They are a mirror. Every outcome in your life, your income, your health, your relationships, your confidence, your discipline, is a direct reflection of the standards you are willing to live with on a daily basis. Not your intentions, not your potential, not what you say you want. Your standards, what you allow, what you accept, what you repeatedly tolerate without taking action. That is what your life conforms to. Most people believe their problem is lack of opportunity, lack of motivation, or lack of time. In reality, their biggest problem is that their standards are too low for the life they claim they want. They say they want growth, but they tolerate distraction. They say they want success, but they tolerate inconsistency. They say they want peace, but they tolerate chaos in their environment and relationships. Life never rises to your wishes. It sinks or elevates to the level of your standards. Look closely at the areas where you feel stuck. You will always find something you've been allowing that no longer serves you. Standards are the invisible rules you live by. They decide what you say yes to, and more importantly, what you say no to. They determine how late you stay up, how early you wake up, how seriously you treat your commitments, and how much disrespect you quietly accept from others and from yourself. If your standard is comfort, your results will be average. If your standard is convenience, your progress will be slow. But when your standard becomes excellence, discipline, and integrity, your results have no choice but to change. Raising your standards doesn't mean doing more things. It means refusing to live beneath your potential. It means deciding that certain behaviors are no longer an option. You stop negotiating with habits that keep you small. You stop making excuses sound reasonable. You stop saying, this is just how I am, and start asking, who do I need to become? Because the moment you raise your standards, your behavior is forced to fall. You don't wait to feel ready. You don't wait to feel confident. You act in alignment with the standard you've chosen, and confidence catches up later. The truth is, people don't change when they feel inspired. They change when the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the discomfort of growth. And the fastest way to create that shift is to raise your standards so high that your old life can no longer coexist with your future. When you decide that procrastination is unacceptable, discipline becomes normal. When you decide that mediocrity is unacceptable, growth becomes inevitable. When you decide that excuses are unacceptable, progress becomes unavoidable. Your current results are not punishing you, they are teaching you. They are feedback. And the feedback is simple. If you want a different life, you must demand more from yourself than you ever have before. Not in an emotional way, not in a temporary way, but in a committed, non-negotiable way. The life you want is on the other side of higher standards. The moment you raise them, everything begins to change. Clarity is not a luxury. It is a requirement for transformation. Without clarity, effort becomes scattered, motivation fades quickly, and progress feels inconsistent. Most people believe they lack discipline or drive, but what they really lack is a clear decision about who they are becoming. When you don't know who you're becoming, you chase everything. You chase money, validation, comfort, opportunity, and approval. And in chasing everything, you build nothing. Power does not come from movement alone. Power comes from directed movement, and direction is born from clarity, chasing. Goals without defining identity is one of the biggest reasons people stay stuck. Goals are external, identity is internal. Goals can change. Identity governs behavior. When you only focus on what you're chasing, your actions depend on mood, circumstances, and motivation. But when you decide who you're becoming, your actions become automatic. You no longer ask, do I feel like doing this? You ask, is this aligned with who I am now? That single shift removes hesitation, confusion, and inconsistency. Clarity collapses decision fatigue. It simplifies life. It tells you what to do and what to ignore. Most people wake up reacting instead of deciding. They respond to messages, opinions, emergencies, and distraction all day long, then wonder why they feel exhausted but unfulfilled. That's what life looks like without clarity. Energy leaks everywhere because nothing has priority. When you decide who you're becoming, your priorities become obvious. You don't need to debate every choice because clarity has already decided for you. Distractions lose their appeal. Opportunities that don't align lose their power to pull you off course. Focus sharpens, and with focus comes momentum. Clarity also creates emotional stability. When your identity is undefined, every setback feels personal, and every obstacle feels like a sign to quit. But when you know who you're becoming, challenges stop feeling like roadblocks and start feeling like training. You don't interpret difficulty as failure. You interpret it as confirmation that you're on the path of growth. This is why clarity creates confidence. Confidence isn't loud or emotional, it's quiet certainty. It's the ability to move forward without needing reassurance, applause, or permission. Deciding who you're becoming also protects you from comparison. When you're chasing outcomes, you constantly measure yourself against others. Their progress makes you impatient. Their success makes you question yourself. But when you're clear on your identity, comparison loses relevance. You're no longer competing with people. You're committing to a process. Your timeline is yours. Your standards are yours. Your responsibility is to show up as the person you've decided to become, nothing more, nothing less. The most powerful thing about clarity is that it turns time into an ally. When you know who you're becoming, every day compounds in your favor. Small actions feel meaningful because they align with a larger vision of self. You stop wasting energy on things that don't matter and you start investing. It inhabits skills and decisions that build the future version of you. Over time, the gap between intention and action closes. Alignment replaces struggle. Clarity does not come from overthinking, it comes from decision. You don't find it, you choose it. And once you choose who you're becoming, power follows. Because a person with clarity doesn't drift, they move with purpose. And purpose, applied consistently, changes everything. Most people approach change from the outside in. They try to fix behaviors, without addressing the person behind the behavior. They focus on habits, routines, and techniques, hoping that if they repeat the right actions long enough, their life will eventually change. But habits don't exist in isolation. They are expressions of identity. Every habit you have is proof of who you believe you are. That's why identity change beats habit change every time. If the identity stays the same, any habit change will be temporary. Eventually, you will revert back to the behaviors that match your self-image. When someone says, I'm trying to wake up early, what they're really saying is, I don't yet see myself as someone who wakes up early. When someone says, I'm trying to be disciplined, what they're revealing is that discipline is not yet part of their identity. The word trying exposes a gap between who they are and who they want to be. Real change happens when that gap closes. When you no longer try, you act. And you act because the behavior aligns with who you believe you are. This is why willpower fails so many people. Willpower requires constant resistance against your own identity. It's exhausting. You're fighting yourself. But when your identity shifts, behavior becomes natural. You don't need motivation to act in alignment with who you are. A disciplined person doesn't struggle to be disciplined. A focused person doesn't debate whether to focus. A person who values growth doesn't need reminders to do the work. They feel uncomfortable not doing it. Identity change also explains why people succeed in one area of life and struggle in another. You can see yourself as professional at work but undisciplined at home. Confident in public but inconsistent in private. The behaviors follow the identity you've accepted in each area. That means the solution isn't more habits. It's a higher self-image across the board. You must redefine who you are when no one is watching. To change your identity, you must change the story you tell yourself. Identity is reinforced through language, choices, and repetition. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, your identity strengthens. Every time you break one, it weakens. This is why small, consistent actions matter, not because they create results immediately, but because they cast votes for the type of person you are becoming. One action won't transform you, but repeated aligned actions will rewrite your identity over time. Most people wait for confidence before acting. That's backward. Identity is built through action, not emotion. You act first and belief follows. You behave like the person you want to become long before it feels natural. At first, it feels uncomfortable because it conflicts with your old identity. But discomfort is a sign of growth, not danger. Over time, the new behavior stops feeling forced and starts feeling familiar. That's when the identity has changed. When identity shifts, habits stop being a struggle and start being a standard. You no longer ask, can I keep this up? Because it's no longer something you're doing, it's who you are. This is why identity change beats habit change every time. Habits can be lost. Identity is defended. Once you become someone new, your life has no choice but to follow. Most people believe motivation is the engine of success. They wait to feel inspired, energized, or emotionally ready before they take action. That belief keeps them stuck. Motivation is unreliable, inconsistent, and temporary. It rises and falls based on mood, sleep, stress, and circumstances. Building your life on motivation is like building a house on sand. Real progress is created by leverage, specifically leverage over time, focus, and environment. When these three are structured correctly, success no longer depends on how you feel. Time is your most underused advantage. People don't fail because they lack time. They fail because they misuse it. They overestimate what they can do in a day and underestimate what consistent effort can do over months and years. When you leverage time, you stop looking for instant results and start respecting compounding. One focused hour a day applied consistently will outperform sporadic bursts of effort fueled by motivation. Time rewards alignment, not urgency. When your daily actions are intentional, time becomes an ally instead of an enemy. Focus is the multiplier of effort. Without focus, energy is diluted. You can be busy all day and still make no progress. Distraction feels harmless in the moment. B. It slowly erodes momentum. Every time you switch tasks, check notifications, or react instead of create, you fragment your attention. Focus requires elimination, not addition. You don't need more tools, strategies, or information. You need fewer distractions. When you decide what matters most and give it your full attention, progress accelerates. Focus turns ordinary effort into extraordinary results. Environment quietly shapes behavior more than motivation ever could. Your surroundings influence what feels normal, easy, and acceptable. If your environment supports distraction, comfort, And inconsistency will struggle no matter how motivated you feel. This includes your physical space, digital inputs, and social circle. People underestimate how much their phone, their room, and the people they spend time with dictate their habits. When you design your environment intentionally, you remove friction from good behaviors and add friction to bad ones. Discipline becomes easier because the environment is doing part of the work for you. Motivation asks, how do I feel today? Leverage asks, how is my life structured? That's the difference between temporary change and permanent growth. When time is respected, focus is protected, and environment is aligned, action becomes consistent, even on days when motivation is low. You no longer need to force yourself to show up. You've made showing up the default. This is how high performers operate. They don't rely on emotion, they rely on systems. Leverage also creates resilience. When setbacks happen, and motivation collapses, but structure holds. You continue to act because the system supports you. Your calendar tells you what matters. Your environment reminds you who you're becoming. Your focus protects your energy. Over time, this consistency compounds into confidence. Not the loud kind, but the quiet kind that comes from knowing you can trust yourself to do the work regardless of how you feel. When you stop chasing motivation and start leveraging time, focus, and environment, progress becomes predictable. Success stops being a matter of chance and starts becoming a matter of design. And what is designed can be repeated. Most people are drawn to big moments, big efforts, big changes. They believe transformation happens through dramatic decisions or intense bursts of action. All-nighter, the sudden surge of motivation, the extreme push that promises quick results. But real progress doesn't work that way. Real progress is quiet, consistent, and often unglamorous. Daily disciplined actions compound faster than massive one-time effort, because success is not built in moments of intensity. It is built in moments of repetition. A massive one-time effort feels powerful, but it fades quickly. It relies on emotion, urgency, and adrenaline. Once the emotion disappears, so does the behavior. That's why people start strong and then stop. They confuse effort with effectiveness. Discipline, on the other hand, is calm. It doesn't need hype. It doesn't require perfect conditions. It shows up whether the day feels good or bad. And because it shows up daily, it compounds. Compounding is invisible at first. That's why most people abandon it. The early days don't feel rewarding. The efforts seem small. The results feel insignificant. But compounding doesn't work on your emotions. It works on time. Each disciplined action builds on the last. One workout strengthens the habit of training. One focused hour sharpens your ability to concentrate. And kept promise increases self-trust. Over time, these small wins stack, and the gap between who you are and who you're becoming begins. To close, massive effort often creates burnout because it demands too much too fast. It ignores sustainability. Daily discipline respects capacity. It allows growth without collapse. When actions are small and consistent, they don't require motivation, they require commitment. You stop asking how you feel and start honoring what you decided. That's how discipline becomes part of your identity rather than a temporary phase. Daily discipline. Actions also remove decision fatigue. When something becomes a non-negotiable part of your routine, you no longer debate it, you just do it. That simplicity creates momentum. Momentum builds confidence. Confidence fuels consistency. This cycle is powerful, but it only works when actions are repeated often enough to become automatic. One-time effort may create a spike, but discipline creates a trajectory. A spike feels impressive, but quickly falls back to baseline. A trajectory keeps moving forward even when progress feels slow. Over weeks and months, that steady movement creates distance between you and your old self. And eventually, the results that once seemed far away become inevitable. The most overlooked benefit of daily discipline is trust. Every time you show up when you said you would, you reinforce trust in yourself. That trust becomes a source of strength far greater than motivation. You no longer need to convince yourself to act. You know you will. And that certainty changes how you approach challenges, opportunities, and pressure. Extraordinary outcomes are rarely the result of extraordinary days. They are the result of ordinary days executed with discipline. When you commit to daily actions, small, focused, intentional, you activate compounding. And compounding, given enough time, will always outperform intensity. Most people overestimate how long change takes and underestimate how much time they've already wasted being distracted. Years pass not because E is slow, but because attention is scattered. Energy is divided. Effort is unfocused. When your actions are misaligned, time stretches without progress. That's how someone can work hard for 6 years and still feel like they're standing in the same place. But when alignment enters the picture, time compresses. Progress accelerates. 6 months of alignment can outperform 6 years of distraction because alignment multiplies. Effort. While distraction dilutes it, distraction doesn't always look like laziness. Often it looks like busyness. People are doing a lot, but nothing that truly matters. They chase too many goals, respond to too many demands, consume too much information, and say yes to things that don't move them forward. Each decision by itself feels harmless, but over time, the cost becomes enormous, focus is fragmented, momentum never builds, results stay shallow. Alignment, on the other hand, is ruthless clarity. It means your time, energy, values, and actions are pointed in the same direction. When that happens, progress stops being accidental and starts becoming inevitable. Alignment creates speed because it removes friction. When you know what matters, you stop wasting energy on what doesn't. Decisions become simpler. Priorities become clearer. You're no longer constantly switching directions, starting over, or second-guessing yourself. The mental load decreases and execution improves. This is why 6 aligned months can feel more productive than years of irritated effort. You're not doing more. You're doing what matters consistently. Another reason alignment accelerates growth is because it restores integrity with yourself. Distraction erodes self-trust. You tell yourself you'll focus, then you don't. You say you'll commit, then you drift. Over time, confidence weakens. Alignment repairs that. When your actions match your intentions day after day, even in small ways, trust is rebuilt. That trust fuels confidence, and confidence fuels bold action. Momentum compounds quickly when you believe in your ability to follow through. Alignment also changes how you experience obstacles. When you're distracted, challenges feel overwhelming because there's no clear reason to push through them. When you're aligned, challenges feel purposeful. You understand why you're enduring discomfort. You know what you're building. That clarity turns resistance into resilience. You don't quit as easily because quitting would mean breaking alignment with who you've decided to become. 6 years of distraction often produce frustration, regret, and confusion. 6 months of alignment produce direction, momentum, and evidence. Evidence is powerful. Once you see progress, real, measurable progress, belief locks in. And once belief locks in, effort increases naturally. You're no longer forcing yourself to move forward. You're pulled by purpose. Alignment doesn't require perfection. It requires honesty and commitment. It requires deciding what truly matters and eliminating what doesn't. When your calendar reflects your priorities, when your habits reflect your values, and when your actions reflect your identity, time starts working for you instead of against you. That's why alignment is the ultimate accelerator. In just 6 months, it can change your trajectory so dramatically that the previous 6 years no longer define you 6 months from now. You will not magically become a different person. You will become the result of the standards you set, the clarity you chose, the identity you committed to, and the actions you repeated daily. That's the truth. Transformation doesn't arrive as a breakthrough, it arrives as a consequence. A consequence of alignment, a consequence of discipline, a consequence of deciding that your future matters more than your comfort. You don't need more information. You don't need permission. You don't need to wait for the perfect moment. You already know what needs to change. The only question is whether you're willing to stop negotiating with the version of yourself that keeps you stuck. Because the life you want is not built by intensity or luck. It's built by standards, systems, and consistency. 6 months of aligned action can separate you permanently from the life you've outgrown. 6 months of focus can undo years of distraction. 6 months of discipline can restore confidence, momentum, and direction. Not because 6 months is special, but because alignment is powerful, so decide today. Decide who you are becoming. Raise your standards. Design your environment, protect your focus. Show up daily, even when no one is watching. If you do that, 6 months from now, you won't be asking for change, you'll be living it.